Hello everyone, and welcome to my actual office on campus in Sisliff 111. If you ever want to drop by and visit, my office hours are from 2 to 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I can arrange to meet you at different times, or we can meet online if you ever need to, as you know. So all you need to do for that is make an appointment. But if you're ever on campus between 2 and 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, feel free to come say hi, because I don't know who you are when you're behind a computer screen. Unlike you get to see me all the time, I very rarely get to see you all. So today we are talking about Gorgias and the encomium on Helen. And I told you a little bit about this on Tuesday, but now that you've had an opportunity to read it, which hopefully you did, it's not that hard to read. Gorgias is very, very clear, especially in Kennedy's translation, which is what you're reading, very, very clear about what he wants to do. He wants to provide an immortality for Helen of Troy that is not disgraceful, that is not about how she started a war, but instead about the fact that that wasn't her fault. And he has some very interesting reasons for why it's not her fault that we're going to go through. But his entire job is wrapped up in the beginning and in the closing paragraphs of his work. He says in the end, I wished to take away the disgrace from a woman and her memory, and I also aimed to divert myself. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, when we use something as a diversion, we're really using it to make us feel better, either to avoid something specific or because we want to find a way to waste time and not think about things, or whether it's just something that makes us feel better, and in the sense that it gives us some sort of joy. And a lot of people probably don't realize the effect that a successful speech can have on individuals. For example, a lot of people who have a fear of public speaking, which I totally understand, but I've never had it, so I don't understand that fear. I've had obviously some level of nervousness, of course, but never to the point where I didn't want to give a speech, because to me, that moment where I know I've got my audience, where I know that they're paying attention to me, where I know that they're learning something or that I'm persuading them of something, that is the moment that is very enjoyable. So being able to construct a speech, knowing it has an impact, and then executing that speech well enough that you do get the reaction that you want, makes us feel good. It's exciting. For Gorgias, I think there's a second level of diversion or of excitement, which is to say that maybe Helen's one of his favorite characters. I'm not really sure how that all plays out, but we do get a good history of who she is and why she's so important. Now, let's talk about the reasons why Helen has a bad rap, if you will, at the time at least. The reason mainly was because she went off with Paris, she left her king, and that started the Trojan War. And of course, who won? Troy won. So of course that is seen as a great violation to the symbolic or the social order, right? How dare she do that? Well, Gorgias says, what if it wasn't her fault? Well, okay, Gorgias, whose fault is it then? And he has some offers. One of them is that fate. She was destined to go with Paris. So she had no control over that. Another was that love, and you'll notice that there's some capitalized words here, love and fate. That's because in classical Greece, they saw those as actual entities that impacted your life. So they would put capital letters, or we designate that with capital letters because it's supposed to be an entity. The goddess of love, for example, is implied to be doing something when we say we can attribute that to love. So that's a second reason why that she was fated, and then that she was actually a victim of love. A third reason why she may have done what she did was because, and in some versions of this, some editions or the translations, I've seen them say that Paris was silver-tongued, that he was able to convince her to go with him. And she was so weak as a woman that she couldn't decide anything else. Or maybe it was all of it. Paris seduced her, she was, hit by love, and this was fated to happen. Who knows what all of them were. But he wants us to let Helen off the hook and start to talk about her for the virtues that she actually had. Now, this isn't a very long piece at all whatsoever. In fact, it's a pretty simplistic piece. But people are putting Gorgias, I think your book mentions this, they're putting Gorgias into a more prominent space than the way that we treat him as rhetoricians. For us, what he's done is he's given us a way to look at rhetoric that reconstructs through language somebody's memory. We change the way that we remember someone because of his rhetoric. And of course, what I consider to be the most important part, he enjoyed doing it. It was something that he really loved doing it. Now, if you've ever had to write a eulogy for anybody, and I really hope you haven't, but I've written a few in my time. And to be honest with you, it is a great responsibility to write a eulogy for someone, because you are telling the audience, whoever they are, how to remember that person. So the two biggest ones for me were my dad and my grandmother. My dad died 36 hours before his mother. So it was my dad and my grandmother were both laid out. We had funerals. Basically, one was on Friday, one was on Saturday. So I had to back create the memory for each of them that was shared in some way because they're family, but also distinct in the reason why they were unique individuals on the earth, right? So that can be a difficult thing to do, but it's also extremely cathartic to sit down and say, this is how this person should be remembered. It's very cathartic. And so it's something that Gorgias enjoyed doing, and he wanted to let people know, because he wasn't really getting deep into the philosophy of rhetoric or knowledge at this point, or truth, but he was getting into the idea that language could do something. And that's what we get out of Gorgias. So I hope you didn't hate reading what you read. We are now going to go into a slightly more difficult, I'm looking at the syllabus right now. No, I'm not. I don't have the syllabus up. I thought I did. We're going to go more deeply into what's known as the sophistic tradition. Now, we don't read Socrates. Sorry, it's not my jam. Mainly because I'm not really sure what all can actually be attributed to him. We don't even know if he existed. We know that he was used as a character for wisdom. And that whenever you read a dialogue that has Socrates in it, generally it's not that Socrates is writing these things or saying these things, but instead that Socrates is being used as the right answer. He has a dialogue with someone where, in the end, you know that Socrates is right. We're going to get into that with Plato specifically when we read Phaedrus. So, enjoy your weekend, but if you could start reading, that would be super helpful. You have a solid 4 days when you don't have to listen to a lecture and you don't have to read. Hopefully sometime in that 4 days you can find time for your next reading assignment. I hope that everybody's been able to find the book online okay. I did get it hooked into our Bright Space, so hopefully it's all made easy for you. But if you have any problems, please, by all means, feel free to let me know. Some of you have emailed me, and I just want to say thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. And I will catch up with you all next week. And in the meantime, have a fabulous weekend.